Hi guys, checking connection. All right, so we're live. How's everyone? And great. Listen, I'm going to be, I'll wait for some more to come in, and I'm going to talk about my lecture this morning, and show you how I'm using my book in my lecture. And I'll wait to see who comes in to listen, and you can sign in and wave and tell me where you're coming from. You can repost into your community so they can join me. Hi Taylor, how are you? You can post that I'm live and share to story and other people, and we'll see how many I get in for lunch. Hi, everybody. I'm going to talk about, please reshare and invite friends. I want to talk today about today's lecture. This morning I taught at Howard University, and I'm teaching from my class, Decolonizing Graphic Design, a Black Perspective. We have two books that are required reading for the semester. I'm focusing on, hi guys. I'm focusing, and I'm using my two textbooks for required reading for my course. I just finished lecturing at Howard, and I'm going to talk about today's lecture and the importance of the class. And I'm also going to do a little book reading from my book. The two required class readings are from Kalina's book, Centered, which I love. Centered People, Ideas, Diversifying Design is required reading for my lectures for Howard University. And we're speaking about my class, Decolonizing Graphic Design from a Black Perspective. We follow the canon, and so I'm in week 2 of the canon. Let me get my syllabus. And I'm showing you how I'm using these new books. I'm just not about you guys buying the books as much as if you're professors or you want to, increase your knowledge on whatever you learned, wherever you learned it. It's important that our new African-American and BIPOC scholars are juxtaposing and adding information to our Eurocentric canon. And so this is my premier class that I teach in a variety of places. You can invite me as a special subject adjunct. I take on a few universities every year to really teach this history and a studio class. Hi, everybody coming in. So today, my Howard started last week, and so we follow the canon. So I believe in the Eurocentric. You can't be a designer without knowing the Eurocentric design canon. So this class starts with the canon. The history. It follows, 14 weeks. And I follow the canon. But what I'm doing with the canon, the Eurocentric, where everybody studies, I'm putting the missing story that you don't get from my perspective. And thus, I'm decolonizing from a Black perspective. And the course, and why Kalina's book is so important, is I use those writings to show how our stories, wherever we're coming from, are extremely, extremely important. So I'm going to do a little reading and show you how I work when I pop on. Maybe Mondays will be a good, after each lecture, I come and talk to you about my lecture and how I use this new scholarship. The key for BIPOC scholars we never had this much exposure in trade publishing. So yes, I want you to buy our books, but I want them to be used and read. And especially those of us who are professors and we have a traditional approach that we all have been taught in predominantly white design pedagogical formats. And so I don't dismiss that. You have to know the Euro canon. I'm sorry. You can't be a designer without it. But I don't want you to miss my perspective, which is added on. And I believe that your perspective is extremely important, and thus the point of my courses. So last week we started with lecture 1 in the syllabus, which we all, no matter if you're studying the history now or any Eurocentric canonical framework, it begins with an introduction of the alphabet, early alphabet symbols. And I love this lecture because I show you all of that. I show you Lascaux caves and the horse and the bull and all of that. But I also show you how the truth of the story is left out. And it's in how the books have been edited and how the books have been art directed. Because let's take Meg's as an example, his opening chapter, which is one of my key points. He tells you specifically that the history of graphic communication starts at the beginning of civilization, and he says it. He types, it's there in the text. If you open it, it's there. It starts in Africa. But what's curious is we as designers, we don't read. We're just looking at the pictures and the keys. And the way it's been art directed over six editions is a focus on the Lascaux caves in southern France. And so you would think that graphic communication starts in southern France, but the book tells you. I don't charge him with not telling you. I charge him with not showing you. And this is critical. I call design forensic work on our standard Bibles. And so last week's lecture focuses on, the responsibility of really reading these texts, these historical books. And I don't charge Meg's not telling you that the history of graphic communication starts in Africa. He tells you. It's right there. And I show it in my lectures. I read it for you. It's right there in his books. But what he doesn't do is show you the pictures. He shows you the pictures of southern France and the keys and the timelines. All of them point to Lascaux, caves in southern France. Even Paul Rand wrote a book about it. But if you read it, he tells you graphic communication starts in Africa. And, I've got some other juxtapositions where that's found. And so that's the way my lesson 1, the history of the canon, starts. Everybody starts with the early alphabets, but I'm going to point out that those early alphabets started in Africa. Today, we move from alphabets to symbols and the development of symbols, and then how symbols, translate into common conversation about branding and back along the history of that corporate identity and logos and all of the wonderful hero worshipers that are, I call, usual suspects to the story of logo development, art form development, corporate branding. The second lesson is the history of symbols. And what's so exciting is that I use the historical framework. I have to. My responsibility is to teach you design, and to teach, whether it's a studio class or whether it's the history of design. I got to show you more stuff because, as in Kalina's book, she shows you that the demographic for the student is broader and in many cases more wiser. We're coming in from Asia. We're coming in from Pan-Latin America, Hispanic, the Caribbean, the African diaspora. All well and good to Swiss and German. That's really wonderful. Really wonderful. But we have other stories, and that's what her book is about. And my lecture, which is in page 171, in the back, my class reads my essay so that they can understand the purpose. The purpose is to broaden our thinking. And I give you facts and figures for the different top-ranked schools and the importance of decolonizing graphic design by statistics. Okay, so Kalina's book shows you, and my last essay talks about, I give you the stats why this is important, because we're graduating from all different places. I've had an incredible opportunity to sit on a lot of graduation daises where I've seen students from around the world, and I can't imagine that the students that come all around the world want to hear about Swiss and German design all the time. Okay, so I kind of talk it out where this is important. I couldn't believe my eyes at Micah. I'm reading from Kalina's book. I couldn't believe my eyes at Micah. I leaned over to my right. I whispered to the other awardee. She was Asian. There's quite a large Pan-Asian community graduating today. They are international, she replied. They are international student population, she informed me. When I got to RISD, I didn't need her by my side to explain the dynamic Pan-Asian community walking across the commencement stage. The visual representation was expansive. Okay, and so I use Kalina's book because it really talks, it's required reading on my syllabus. It really talks to everybody, and the importance, the absolute importance of our stories and our practice. It's more than Swiss and German now. It's more than Eurocentric male patriarchal view to design. We're here, and thank God I'm still alive. I call myself OG BIPOC. I'm so mixed, only my hairdresser knows. So our stories, there are more me's now in generation Gen Z, and our voices demand that the way that we're educated is more expansive. I never take away from the canon. You'll never hear me say you don't need the Eurocentric design canon. You must. It's impossible. It's impossible. You must know it. But I also charge us that we must know a broader perspective. So I use Kalina's book, okay? And I'm saying that we buy these books not just to buy them, but to read them, to use them, to incorporate them in our practice, to incorporate them in our syllabus. And if you're a professor, make them as required reading and prompts and so forth. So today's lecture was about branding and logo development. And so I use my own book is the required reasoning. The book drops October 15th, so they can get it before the final. Their final is going to be from my book. And so I'll just read. Today we talked about African American letter form and logo designers as we discussed the history of symbols. We always focus on Herb Lubalin and Rand and Milton Glaser, and there's just a traditional list. And I point out some other conversation and some other practitioners. What's really interesting is on page 45, I talk about Dorothy Hayes and the allies that came to the conversation of her New York show, the Black Artists and Graphic Communication show. At inception, I'm reading from page 45. At inception, Dorothy Hayes wanted the Black Artists and Graphic Communication show to travel around the country to increase its reach and impact. After the show closed at Gallery 303, it went on a year-long cross-country tour starting in April 1970. The travel log included Rhode Island School of Design, the Studio Museum in Harlem, the New York Public Library, the University of the State of New York, the Mobile Art Gallery, Pensacola Art Center, and the Union College Board, and was scheduled to stop for Chicago and Toronto. It completed its tour in April 1971. So, see, my book is not only just my story, it's the fact that in 50 years, I've lived through a tremendous amount of African American history, and the New York design community elite history that is all well recorded in the trade magazines and in our books. And so living it, I'm telling you, well, look, out of my studio window, this is what I saw. And I've collected some incredible, so today's lecture, I talked about branding, I talked about logo, I talked about Tom Carnese, I talked about Herb Lubalin, I talked about all of those who are crafting our form and letter forms, which are, everybody wants to do the signatures and ligatures and stuff. All of that work, even my logo sheet that's, going around, all of that was done before Adobe. It was real craftsmanship. And there's a clip on famous designers you ought to know, Herb Lubalin. What people don't know about Herb Lubalin is how he was an ally to Dorothy Hayes. And what's so exciting is the artifacts and the pictures. There he is right here with Dorothy Hayes. This is Herb Lubalin, Dorothy Hayes. I don't know who that guy is. We looked high and low to find him. George Olden and Eli Cantor, or is that Sidmans? That's Eli Cantor. Yeah. So these are pictures and things that you haven't seen, but Herb Lubalin and Eli Cantor were allies, and in being allies, they helped Dorothy to put on this show. So today's lecture, where I talked about the history of symbols, which comes after the history of the letter form. Okay, so we're following the canon. I talked about Rand. I talked about Glazer. I talked about the letter form and logos and branding, and even we talked about branding the flags and things that for January 6th. The importance of when we our own code of ethics for developing logos and responsibility, the forensic work now that is helping to identify those that participated in January 6th. We had a whole discussion on the history of symbols. And with that, I was able to juxtapose a synoptic conversation about George Olden and his logos and branding and television work. And what's exciting is, I have the artifacts. And my story, I lived through it, and there he is. He was on the committee, the curation committee, for the show. I showed something from YouTube University. I love YouTube University, but you have to know what you're picking up at YouTube University, And so, what I feel a responsibility to in my work is that, because I'm celebrating 50 years in the business, 1974 to 2024 is when I graduated, and hit the field running. I lived through so much history of graphic design North America, and also the Black history of us. And so my book talks about these things, and it's so well footnoted. I want to encourage you to find me at the AIGA virtual. I've got a lineup. We're going to post who's going to be speaking for the main stage. I'm going to charge my editor, to talk about. She edits and is a major editor of design criticism and history, and I want to know, what did she learn new? I'm going to be asking tough questions about working on the book, and what story, what anecdote, what every memory I had to have a footnote. There's no storytelling here, so I'm really excited about that. And we've got quite a lineup of my colleagues and friends who have been with me over the course of 50 years to talk about the intersection of the history in my story that you see in my book. So please join my session with that. And then we're coming back with Ask Us Anything. I have a wonderful new lineup of BIPOC designers from around the globe that you can ask questions. You don't have to ask me any question. They're there to answer your questions. So you want to sign up for that. And that's going to be at the AIGA virtual conference. So please join me with that. And if you're in the Mid-Atlantic, I will be at the AIGA DC Design Week. And I'm bringing my story back home. You all know I'm from Washington, D.C., where all of this started. And so DC Design Week with their stories within theme. I'm going to be on the stage book chatting with Julie Annixter, former president of AIGA, who works for Throughline. She's one of the executives at Throughline. And we're going to be at Duke Ellington School of the Arts. I think it's 5 o'clock on October 2nd. So get the book for me and pre-order. It's, I don't know. I want you to get a first edition. Publishers will always make sure that they have books for you. I don't want you to be in back order. So just follow, whether it's this way or this way, follow the bio link. And I want to thank everybody who is pre-ordering. The publisher already told me I'm number 13 in all of Chronicle Books publishing in for the fall. That's all of their genres. They Chronicle Books, Princeton Architectural Press is their design, criticism, and history genre unit. But out of all of their authors, I'm number 13, and that's really big because they produce a lot of books. So I thank you for all of those pre-orders. And what's really exciting is, I always lift up, there's so many moving parts. I love the cover. The story of the cover is here. And Christopher Loper, I want to shout out to him about some of the typographic concept. And of course, my mentee nephew, Trey Seals, we're using his typeface Martin. And I'm not going to be before you long here. I just jumped on and wanted to give you a summary of my lecture today at Howard University and how I'm using the new design scholarship. It's more than just buying the book. I want you to read the books, use the books. And if you're a professor, integrate assignments on your syllabus with them. It's been quite a journey to be able to bring you this history. 50 years of graphic design history that intersected my graphic design history and all wrapped up into a book. You don't have to look for us. Indeed, we are here. So that was my book reading. That was, you want to come back next Monday. I will talk about, have another book reading and the following, and I'll show you my lectures, how I'm following the canon. I teach history of design along with a couple studio classes, publication and communication design studio classes, but they all have the same spin of telling stories from wherever we come from, using our aesthetic from wherever we come from. And so be bold, be brave. A mind is a terrible thing to waste. So use everything God has given you. And thank you for his grace. Pre-order here for me. That will help my Amazon numbers. And keep Kalina's book in print. And this is how I'm using these books. I'm just not buying them. And, it's Christmas. And so give some books to if you're in a studio, or to a loved one who's a Black designer, any designer. My book is a great story of inspiration and hope and full of footnotes. Love you. Any questions while I have you all here? I'll come back again with, today was a lecture and I showed you some of my readings. And so I appreciate you. I'm going to be posting my book tour soon, but the first one I know I'm going to be in DC. So if you're from DC, meet me at Duke Ellington at 5 o'clock and follow all of the promos for AIGA DC Design Week. And I'm waving into everybody who joined me. It's great to see you, and I thank God for you. And, I'm blessed to still be alive to give you this truth. So I'm here, you're here, and let's keep journeying on. This is Cheryl Miller. Any questions? If not, I'll see you next time. Okay.